Okay, well, welcome back. And today I have another video for you about relationships and dating, most specifically online dating. So I came across this post, or it was more of a repost of an original post because I was unable to find the original, but the original post was just titled 500 Matches, 100 Dates. And the person who constructed this list did a breakdown of how many dates they went on and different things they had, different statistics about each of the dates or the matches and whatever. So what we're going to do is we're going to go show you that post, and we're going to talk about, we're going to break down the numbers a little bit, talk about the information, and hopefully be able to glean some advice from it, maybe advice in your own online dating experience or just advice in general that we can get from it. So hopefully it's really informative. Let's get to that right over here. So first we have the post. So yeah, this was over the course of 2 years. I've had 500 matches and gone on exactly 100 dates. Out of curiosity, I took a lot of notes. So you can see this is the original compilation. So I grabbed the just the image here, so we can go through all the different little boxes here and figure out just kind of exactly what the breakdown was, and hopefully we can, like I said, get some more information out of it and perhaps some things to help ourselves in dating. So over here, so obviously we have the title, so we have 500 matches, 100 dates. So to clarify, it was from February of 2018 to April of 2020. This person matched specifically with 500 women. So this is the subject was a man, and he matched with 500 women. And of those 500, 100 of them ended up being dates. So let's start in the beginning. So where did I meet everyone from? So these are the services that he used and the number of matches. So we have Tinder, Hinge, Bumble, Match, OkCupid, and Plenty of Fish. And then the number of dates for each of them. So notice how Bumble, the highest number of dates, next Hinge, then a few from Tinder, Match, a surprising amount from Match. That's actually kind of a lot. And then Plenty of Fish, and finally OkCupid with only 3. Now, interestingly, here's where I think the first part gets interesting of this. So if you notice the top number of matches, the top 3, the Tinder, Hinge, and Bumble, these are all free to use mobile-only applications. I don't think any of these have like website versions of them. They're all phone-based mobile apps. Then you have Match, OkCupid, and Plenty of Fish, which do have mobile app versions, but they are companions to the actual website itself, right? So they were first and foremost a website, and then later on, once mobile apps became really big, they ended up having mobile versions of them. So what I think is the most interesting to look at is obviously the top 3 by a pretty wide margin are the mobile-only versions, or mobile-only swipe-heavy apps, where it's the left-right, or they're based on the whole left-right swipe deal. So Tinder being the most, it doesn't surprise me because it's the most well-known, I believe, of all of the like mobile app-only dating services. I believe it's probably the most popular, most well-known. So the most people probably use this one, and I feel like at least the stereotype on Tinder is that everyone is just swiping left or right on everything and then hoping for matches. So I know it's been there's a strategy on Tinder, at least for men, where you just swipe right or say yes to everybody, and then filter your matches from there if you even get matches. Hinge and Bumble are similar in the way that it's the left-right swipe. The only different thing I know from Bumble is Bumble specifically has the setup where, as a man, you just swipe left or right, and then once you get a match, it's up to the other person, or up to the woman in this case, to message you first. And I know from the very little that I used it, that's the only way that you can message someone is when the woman messages you first. Now, the outlier here is Match. So Match.com is a paid service. There is no, as far as I'm aware, there are no free services that Match offers. Everything is paid, and both men and women have to pay for the service. Whereas like with OkCupid and Plenty of Fish, they have paid services and free services. The paid gives you a little bit better, but also the paid services really only benefit men, from what I understand, that women don't really have to pay for it to get full use of the site. So that's interesting to me that these bottom 3 are like the old guard, so to speak, for this online dating. But looking at number of matches or number of dates, Bumble had the most, followed by Hinge. Now, that makes sense to me initially, just because obviously you had over 100 on all three of these, so you're going to get the most dates out of them. Bumble, again, being where the woman has to message first, so that may have something to do with it. Maybe Bumble is not so good at getting you matches, but maybe better at getting you dates. That could be one. And then Hinge and Tinder are very, very close. And then, so I wouldn't, not too much difference that I could say from there. I know Hinge, their whole marketing thing is that they're like the app that's designed to be deleted. Like they want you to match with people and get off them, whatever. And then Tinder as well, Tinder. Interestingly, that Tinder, of these top three, Tinder had by far the most matches, but then also the lowest number of actual dates compared to the other two, like mobile only ones, or free mobile only ones. Match is a weird one, because Match is the only one that's actually in the same place, still in fourth, which is kind of interesting. But also, only 11 dates have 66 matches. Like, that is, well, I don't know, I guess that tracks, because look, you have 161 for Tinder, but only 19 actually went out with you, so yeah, no, I think that tracks. The only two I think that really are that switch places are Plenty of Fish and OkCupid with 8 and 3, like below 10 dates with that, which is interesting because in my personal experience, I've had much more success with OkCupid and actually abysmal results with Match. I've had terrible luck with Match. It's just not my app. That may also have something to do because I unfortunately could not find the original post because this originally was posted to the Tinder subreddit. And when I looked for the original post, I couldn't find it. It wasn't there anymore. So unfortunately, I just had to go with this image. But remembering the original post as best I can, the guy who put this data together was a little older. I think he was over 40 and also a single parent. So his dating pool also might be very different than, say, like my dating pool. But we'll kind of see what we get there. So let's go over here while we're talking about matches, and let's look at last day data on what was in common about the profiles of all 500 matches. This is still taking into account so these are 100 of the people here he went on a date with, but these are the matches in total. So first we have 488 had photos of them exercising, which if you think about that a lot, that means the good majority of them had photos exercising. Exercising is a good one. I've come across a lot of profiles where people have pictures of themselves at the gym or working out or whatever. Eating or drinking, of course, those are good ones. You're going to see a lot of eating and drinking ones. Let's see, have at least one photo in their profile they weren't in, which is pictures of food, nature, art. This is surprising to me that there were so many people, 464, so many people had this, because a lot of the advice, like anytime you look for advice on like online dating or building a profile or whatever, you're always going to see you should be like front and center in all your pictures. It should always be like, you should be obvious, like which one is you should always be super obvious. So having a picture of just like food, nature, or art or whatever is weird that like so many had that. But I guess okay too, like I would be curious as to, of these 464 profiles that had that, what was the breakdown, like what was the average number of photos they had? Because I could say, okay, let's say you have 10 photos on your profile and one of those 10 is of like food, we'll say. I think that's way better than, say, if you only have 3 photos and one of them is food, right? So that would be I think that day would be better served if we knew like total number of pictures on average and that type of thing, right? Now, 441 had moderately filtered photos, right? This next one, we can see that. This next one here. This is very, very subjective because I feel like moderately filtered, how do you define moderately filtered? Like, is it, simple color correction? Is it red eye reduction? Like, what kind of, filter are you talking about? Which is kind of interesting. Like, and we're going to see this pattern, I think, a lot here of information where you want to see a little bit more, and it would be better. You get a better idea of the types of people that he was meeting or the types of dates he was going on. If there was just a little bit more information, this would be a little more useful. So then we have 408 photos of hiking. Yeah, hiking's a pretty popular thing to do. It's very easy. Like anybody can do it. You don't have to be like super physically fit or anything for hiking. Had photos of only their head or face. Now this is, again, also not surprising. 315, so a good majority of them, or not, well, no, not but a good number of people, right? Had photos of them, only their head or face. This, I understand, is very, very common. A lot of men, I believe, do this too, where, again, you only show just your head or your face because there's something that you're not too proud of. Now, or this also could be something very innocent. It could be that they thought that they were smiling very nicely in the photo, but they didn't really like the shirt they were wearing, so they cropped it down to just show their head because they really thought that was the best part of the picture. Maybe they really liked their hair in the photo. And I think so. I think there's any number of reasons why you may only show a photo. But what this is saying too is that all of the photos, so I believe this is saying, is that all of the photos were just their head or face. Which that, yeah, a little suspect. You'd want to see like at least one full body picture, but that type of thing. But people, of course, again, most advice, online dating advice that you find will have some reference to like show your whole body in photos. Let's see, had memes or quotes as photos. Now, again, I wonder if this is like we said before with the pictures of food or whatever. Is this the like every single profile was just, or every single photo was just memes or quotes, or was it say 1 out of 10, 1 out of 5? How many? Now 291 I feel like is still pretty high, but again, you can learn stuff. So depending on the quote or the meme, you can get a sense of something. Like with a meme, if it's a humorous one, you can get a good sense for like the person's sense of humor, which may be good. Maybe that may be beneficial to you. Or quotes again might tell you a little bit about different speakers or different people that the person likes. As for advice on that, I would stay away from that. So like on all of my profiles, I've never had memes or quotes or anything. Or also if it was only head or face, usually I have at least my upper torso, or kind of like the way the frame is now, right, where you can see like shoulders and head and all that kind of stuff. Then of course 273 profile said no hookups. That's pretty standard. There's a lot of that. A lot of people I find will always put no hookups there because they're looking to filter out a certain type of person. That I think is smart. Of putting there, being very clear. Like I'm always a fan of being very clear in your intention, in your meaning. So yeah, if you're not interested in that, put that right in there front and center. You don't want people to kind of jump to their own conclusions or expect something that you're not going to give them. So then, now this is the other one I found that was interesting. 267 had Snapchat animations in their photos. So either the flowers, the ears, whatever. That's interesting because, I mean, Snapchat filters, I guess people are trying to maybe show that they're funny or try to show their like quirkier side, I guess. I don't know. This is something I would stay away from for both men and women. I wouldn't recommend doing that because I think it's a little too overdone. This next one had heavily filtered photos. That's again just like the other one, previous one where it says moderately filtered. What is heavily filtered? I think with heavily filtered, you can only really determine if a photo has been heavily filtered. Some of them you can tell, right? Obviously, like the Snapchat filters or whatever, like some of them you can really tell, like, hey, this is a particular filter, or this is definitely very, very edited. That's something that, again, I would qualify. It would be better served if they qualified what do they think heavily filtered is. Then 202 referenced Donald Trump, both good and bad. So 202, which is not the majority, but it's a good number, referenced Donald Trump. Now, again, this is from 2018 to 2020, so it's very relevant at the time. I know that the Trump presidency was very controversial, both for people in favor of it and people against it. So I understand a lot of people using that. I still run across profiles even today where people will say like, hey, swipe left if you, left is usually no, right's yes. Like swipe left if you voted for Trump or whatever like that. So that's something that I've seen before, and it's nothing. I mean, I don't usually pay attention too much to it, but it is something that's on there. I wouldn't recommend it unless you're very, very adamant about one way or the other. So then let's see. Spoke negatively about prior relationships. A lot of them, I've seen that before, just got out of a bad relationship, this and that, or, was in a long-term relationship, things went south. I've heard that before. They always say like, oh, don't talk, about your exes and stuff like that and whatever, which is good advice. Unless there was maybe something specific. There may have been, if you're somebody who had a very, very specific negative experience that you want to make sure you don't repeat and you want to avoid those people and you want those people avoiding you, then yeah, you might want to put that in there. 197 isn't that high. A 162 had cats in their pictures. That is spelled completely wrong, but okay. That's fine. I guess cats are more popular than dogs. I'd be curious how many had dogs to compare, but this is kind of a weird one. Does it mean, I'm assuming they were with the cats? That's a weird one. And finally, only 91 had one photo on the profile. This is actually a low number, I think. I've run across so many profiles across so many services where the person just has one picture and it is the worst possible photo they took. It looks like they took it on a Polaroid camera and then scanned it in with a scanner from like the 20s. It always is horrible, but yeah, I don't even know about that. So let's look. So those are the matches, right? That finishes up the matches section. So let's go with talking more about pictures. Let's talk about the people that actually dated. So these are, did my dates look like their profiles in real life? So we've already went over what all the profiles had. So let's look at these ones that actually they showed up with. So remember, they only went on 100 dates. That's 100 individual people out of the 500. So 71% were heavier than their profile showed. This is a little high for what I imagine, but again, I want to say this is subjective because the way you take a picture can very often make you look different than how you would appear in real life, or it depends on what you're wearing in the photo. So saying that they were heavier, my question would be significantly heavier or a tiny bit, or is it just kind of, well, this is the way the way it looked on camera, because I feel like, maybe personally, I think people always look different than in their pictures because, again, you're meeting them in a different environment, different time of the year than the picture was taken, different lighting, or whatever. 66% looked older than their stated age. This is not surprising, but this is very subjective because, again, I'm terrible at judging people's ages. So to me, I have no idea how old you are by just looking at you. So that's kind of subjective. I don't know if that's really a useful stat to have for us, but they looked older. Okay. Then next it says 38% looks nothing like their profiles. I would be very curious to know, like, I wish he included more details on when he says look nothing like, what does he mean? Like, are we talking about like way shorter or taller, or like, and I mean significant, like a foot taller than they said they were, or a foot shorter, or 100 pounds heavier than they said they were, or whatever. Like, I'd be really curious as to what he means by look nothing like it at all. But we'll go down to more of the actual like matches here. So this is for, I guess, more matches. So a number of matches that tried to get me to sign up for their private porn or OnlyFans site, 141. So this is of total matches. So of the 500, 141 of them tried to get him to sign up for something. So I guess, respect the hustle, I guess. I don't know. I've never had that experience, so I can't really relate or have any sort of advice for anyone. Obviously, for men, if you do get this kind of match, just move on. Unless you're really into that, that's whatever. So let's talk about the dates themselves. We'll go down to this next section here, and then we'll move over to this last section. So of all of the dates, of the 100 dates that he went on, 38 of them resulted in a second date. That's pretty good, I think, actually. I think those are pretty good numbers. 21 was a third date, which is pretty good. Also, I think that's exceptional. I think 21 of 100, 21 being third dates. There you go. And then only 9 had 7+ dates. So I think these three numbers are all very realistic. I don't think these are like outliers or anything that's like out of the ordinary or specific to this person's case. Like, I think these are definitely very realistic numbers, I would assume. I think 38 second dates, 21 third, 9, 7+, that's pretty good. So it's basically 9 of them turned into like actual relationships where you're seeing this person very regularly. Because 7 dates, if you only saw them once a month, like that could be, you could be talking about half a year that you've been seeing someone, which is pretty good. So then let's look at the first impressions, because this is one. So first dates, these are the first impressions that the person got. So the first thing, 31% were dressed like they just rolled out of bed. Again, very, very subjective. Again, I would have to see photos to actually know, like, oh yeah, okay, these don't look good or whatever. So again, super subjective. 26% were dressed just like they left the gym. Not as subjective, because there is definitely gym attire that people wear. But I don't know if that's a positive or negative. 61% had way too much makeup. 100% subjective. The level of makeup somebody's wearing is going to be personal preference on every level. There's no way you could judge that it was way too much. Unless there was qualifiers for what he thought was too much. This is kind of unimportant. 36% had way too much perfume. Again, Really subjective. Perfume, I mean, there are different scents, can be stronger than others. You may have a sensitivity to certain scents, so one person might think, oh yeah, my God, that's way too much. Another person might be like barely gonna be able to smell anything. I have a very terrible sense of smell. I might not even know. So again, super subjective to the point of almost being useless. Then we got 53% had their hair up in a messy bun. That's just a hairstyle, sure, okay. 18% wore heels. Again, that's just personal choice from what I understand. I've never worn high heels, but I understand they can be very uncomfortable, and perhaps people want to be comfortable, so what are you going to do? Let's see, 91% couldn't put their phones away. This is, I don't know. I want to say this is subjective, but it also couldn't be, right? This could be legitimately the person just stared at their phone the entire time, or the person could have picked up their phone once to check the time, and that could be for this guy, that could be way too much. I don't know. I'm not going to judge one way or the other whether this is a good or a bad thing. I mean, my recommendation is if you need to check your phone for something, either excuse yourself and go to the bathroom and check there, like if you're out at a restaurant, we'll say, or if you want to check, wait for the other person to go to the bathroom, right? Guy or girl gets up, they're like, hey, let me go to the bathroom real quick. Then as they go to the bathroom, then I would pull my phone out, look at the time, see if I got a message, something, whatever. That way it doesn't look like you're kind of glued to your phone the whole time on the date, you know? And 93% were late. This is interesting. So I understand why you might be late to like a first date. So for me, I always try and be on time, but I can understand if you're going to a place that you're not super familiar with. I could see not wanting to be the first one there, not wanting to be kind of that awkward situation where you're walking, you're standing around, you don't know where the other person is, whatever. If you're like just 5 minutes late, maybe 10 minutes, then you'll be the second one there, and you know to look for them, then trying to get them to like look for you and all that kind of stuff. So I can understand being a little bit late, especially on a first date. I wouldn't really hold it against anyone, and at least they showed up, right? I mean, if they were like an hour late or more, then yeah, obviously that's pretty egregious. But a couple of minutes, I'm not going to really hold a grudge for that. So let's get to conversations. I think this is the conversation section. Yeah, first date conversations. We'll talk about that, and then we'll go up to the like financials and stuff. So the first date conversations. So again, 87% talked to their kids. So then again, let's go back to the person who originally put this up was over 40 and a single parent. So chances are they were running into other single parents in their online dating experience. So to me, seeing 87%, that is very normal, makes perfect sense to me. 77% were scorned by an ex. Okay, so bad ex experiences. I know they say to not, again, that it's the advice that I've always gotten is not to talk about past relationships while you're on a date. I think if, it depends if it's relevant to the conversation. If you had a particularly negative experience, I could see bringing it up because it's something that you are really, really trying to avoid. So I can understand that. Me personally, I have no problem with people talking about their exes, right? Like, they're their ex for a reason, okay? 73% had trust issues. I don't know what to say about that. I've never had anyone tell me they had trust issues. I could see that, especially if you date a lot. I could see that. I could see there being like long-standing issues or recurring issues that you're trying to avoid. 71% talked about politics and Orange Man bad. So again, this was between 2018 and 2020. So those two, that was during the Trump presidency, and it was like I said, it was very controversial. I can understand that. 71% does seem kind of high, just because I know most advice that I've seen usually tells you to avoid things like politics or whatever. But what I will say is I think it's not a bad topic to talk about on a first date. Maybe go till second or third, but because again, if there are certain views, certain affiliations that you are looking to avoid, best just get that out of the way early. Don't prolong it. Just get it out of the way as soon as you can, and then all right, maybe I don't want to continue on with this person. So I think is totally fine. Talked about past and present medical problems. This is rough. That is a high number. This seems way too high for me. Unless you have a chronic daily medical issue that is affecting you every day and affects like your general living, right? I would shy away from that on a first date, especially a first date. Because again, constantly talking about problems whenever is not good. It can give kind of a bad impression initially, so I would steer away from that unless it's something that is so debilitating that this person needs to know right away whether they're going to want to deal with this or not. If it's something like a chronic pain, like things that that don't necessarily affect something that's not like a physical disability, I would kind of shy away from it, at least on a first date. Of course, if you keep wanting to see them, yeah, bring it up eventually, or bring it up maybe on the second or third date. But I don't think a first date bringing up, hey, I've had these serious medical problems, might not necessarily be good. It could turn a lot of people off. Here's another one that I think is very strange. 64% said they don't have time to date. I would have liked to know a little bit more about this one, just because don't have time to date. Does that mean that you're just very, very busy and don't get out onto dates very often? Or not have time to date in that they're not looking to really date someone and they're just there to hook up or something like that? I feel like that can go a lot of different ways. So would like to, like I said, this seems high. I'd like to know a little bit more about that. 62% said they were suffering from some form of depression. I'm going to give the same advice I did when it comes to medical problems. On a first date, I would avoid that on the first date, especially first. There's nothing wrong with it, but a first date, you're trying to get to know the person, and I understand, yes, that obviously if they're going to continue to date you, having some form of depression will come up and will be an issue. But again, on the first date, I would avoid it. That would be a second date conversation, in my opinion. But if it's something that, again, you're very passionate about and you really need to get off your chest and really need to go for it, then yeah, by all means. And then finally, we have 57% talking about their current financial situation. He doesn't go into whether good or bad. Are they talking about financial problems? Are they talking about financial success? There's a lot here. You can definitely there's much more of a breakdown here. I can't really offer any advice on this because I don't know, what they're possibly talking about, like good or bad financial situations. I don't know. So let's move on to let's talk about finances really quick. So this is here we go. Bring that into focus. So average date was $78.51. This is American, and the most expensive date was $237. I want to know what they did for that date. $237. Like, you weren't going out eating. I mean, $237 for 2 dinners is astronomically expensive. I don't know, maybe, because I don't know the location that this guy was getting these dates in, but maybe if you go to like New York or Los Angeles or something, like some really expensive city, maybe, but dear God, that's too much. $78.51 I think is also really, really high in average cost. That means on average, he was spending close to $80, right, on a date. Now, yes, okay, if you go to dinner at a pretty nice restaurant for 2 people, drinks, dessert maybe, yeah, I could see that being pretty expensive. But I could see that being like $80, but it still seems pretty high. Then we have down here, we have number of times a date paid, only 3. Now that, of course, just without getting too much into stereotypes and like gender roles and stuff like that, that seems like a very normal number for me. Now, I would just be curious as to which 3 dates they paid for and what the average cost of the date was. Like, I'd be super, super impressed if the most expensive date, if the date paid for that one. But we'll see. And the number of times they offered to split the check, 27. I'm surprised the number isn't higher, but again, maybe the guy didn't bring it up, right? Like I would want to know, I'd be curious as to, is this 27 times, did all 27 of those people bring up it and say, hey, let's split it? Or did he suggest let's split and only 27 of the people like accepted and said, sure, let's split? So again, I don't know this would probably be better served, again, from a little bit more information. Let's go down here. Let's go to the actual like things that the dates did. So 17 dates got drunk. I'm curious again. 17 seems high to me, but I'm wondering, is it 17 that were like uproariously drunk, or was this 17 that like, I got a little tipsy, whatever? Like, I'd be curious just to the degree, if they would go into a little bit more detail on that one. And then we have who made the first move at 62. They did 38. I did. First move as to what? What was the result of that first move? Was this did they messaged you first? They asked you on the date first? Weird. I don't know what they're talking about. But let's look over at the bad, I guess. Yeah, we'll go there next, and then we'll go over at the other ones. 2 of them stalked me. Again, that's weird. 13 ghosted. That's acceptable. That's a very expected number. I think 13 having ghosted somebody is very, very expected. That's just a very, very common thing that happens with online dating. Nothing too wild. That 9 asked to borrow money. That's surprising to me. I've never had a date ask to borrow money from me. I'd be very curious as to like how that conversation went. For cried, again, I have never ever had a date cry while we're on a date together. I'm curious as to what they cried about. Like, what was the conversation? What were you doing? Then 1, you had to call the police on. Again, be very curious as to what that situation was. And then 3, broke a law went with me. What kind of law? Like, okay, 17 of them were drunk. Does that mean that 3 of them like drunk driving? I don't know what kind of law they broke, which is interesting to me. I'd be very curious as to like what law they actually broke while they were with them. Let's see. Let's go up here. We'll go up to the middle section. So 41 that kissed on the first date. I think that's reasonable. I mean, that has happened to me pretty regularly. It happens to people all the time. I feel like it's not like this isn't too outside of what I would consider normal or almost, I wouldn't say to be expected, but I wouldn't call this like abnormal, out of the ordinary, or like, oh man, what a Casanova over here kissing 41 women. Like, I think this is a pretty normal number. Then 16 had sex on the first date. That, again, I'd be curious as to how this was initiated. Did he ask? Did she ask? What was the situation that came about to get to that? Do I think 16's high? Maybe. I mean, 100 dates, probably not. I mean, 16's a small number. This is something where I can offer some advice on this one. I personally would stay away from it. If you're looking to stay with somebody long term, or you're looking to date someone long term, and you're looking to date them more than once, there's always a second date. You know what I mean? Like if you are really hitting it off with the person, the vibes are right, you can always wait until the second date. The first date, again, that's a little, I think the issue I would run into, and I think that I would want to avoid in this situation, is say if your first date is going very, very well, and offering to, and if you broach that subject and they turn you down, well, then that might make date number 2 very awkward, and it could just get into some weird territory. So again, I would wait until, say, date 2 at least, just if you want to see this person more regularly. And lastly, so these are the last 2 that we'll go over. So 24 wanted to have sex number. That's 24. So that's 16 you actually did, I'm assuming. Now, I don't know. Again, this would be better served if it was it 24 separate from that 16? Or does that 16 where you actually did it, does that actually include this number? Is that what was included in this 24? Maybe. I don't know. I would be curious as to what the situations were where it didn't work out. And then finally, we're not going to be able to get this to say, I'm not going to be able to move out of the way here, am I? No, I can't. Oh, well. 3 said, it just says, 3 said they loved me on the first date, right? You can see it down there. Yeah, I guess that's normal. I don't know. I've never had anyone say that, so I really can't comment on it. But anyway, so that finishes up. I think that is every little box there. For the most part, I would say that these were some pretty average numbers, I thought. I didn't think that there was anything out of the ordinary on this one where anything that they said where I thought was like super high or super low. Some of them were a little surprising, but overall, like I said, I think overall it's good information, but again, there are definitely parts where I could definitely have used a little bit more information. So I hope you enjoyed that. I know it was a little longer than I think that I was originally intending on it, but I think there was some good stuff. I think it was interesting information. I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know if there was anything that surprised you, anything that didn't surprise you, or if you've had similar experiences to this individual. But anyway, thank you, and later in the week will be another video.